Catching other people's feelings or hyper empathy. Hi, I'm Brett, the Auddh Boss, and on this channel, I talk about autism and ADHD in the corporate workplace. I'm an autistic leader with ADHD. I've been in a corporate leadership role for over 10 years. Empathy is an interesting topic when it comes to autism. There is a myth that still circulates to this day that people with autism can't have empathy. That's wildly out of date research and wildly untrue. In fact, many of us actually have hyper empathy or have this ability to what we call catching other people's feelings or empathy attunement, where we're sort of a radio tuner or a frequency tuner to bring in other people's emotions. Embrace Autism refers to this empathetic attunement as having a fog of emotions and making it difficult to differentiate from other people's emotions and your own. They also write that it can cause particular sensitivity to negative emotions, although it is very possible to also pick up on positive emotions as well. And that these empathy challenges for autistics can also be really overwhelming. And I definitely can feel that too. I definitely feel that overwhelm many times when it happens to me. In particular, that overwhelm can lead to a lot of anxiety, and I need to remove myself from a situation. I'm feeling that anxiety rise up within me. It's very similar to how we will experience senses, like our different sensory things can be overwhelmed, or our different sensory things that we are extra attuned to can sort of pick up on other things as well. Sensory to like clothing, or sensory to like the temperature, different things like that. Myself, I can sometimes pick up on other people's anger, their frustration, their sadness, but also their happiness and their joy. I can catch joy from someone else. If I'm in a conversation with somebody and they're just sort of beaming and radiating joy and happiness, sometimes I catch that feeling, I catch that joy, and I can feel that too. At the other end of that spectrum, however, if someone's dealing with a lot of anger or frustration or sadness, I can sometimes pick up on that. Sometimes I refer to this as getting drunk on empathy, because a lot of times it can happen in any capacity. It can be happening when I'm watching a TV show, a commercial, a movie, a conversation with a friend or family member, or a colleague at work. And one of the things that I specifically struggle with is trying to differentiate between what are my actual feelings and what are the feelings that I'm picking up on. And because I'm a high masker and I camouflage a lot of those things kind of merge together and can sometimes confuse me and lead to a little bit of extra burnout while I'm trying to assess what am I actually feeling? How am I actually feeling all of these different things? And I can only speak from my personal experience. Sometimes, especially at work, when we start to pick up on other feelings, like if we're in a meeting or we're in a situation where we're sort of getting a lot of those feelings, we can sometimes have trouble communicating. It can sometimes slow down or confuse the communication that we need to do because we're trying to assess through our feelings and assess through that situation of different types of feelings. So sometimes it requires us to sort of distance ourselves from that conversation, from that person, from that interaction, so that we can go catch our breath, check our feelings, check in on ourselves, and figure out what is it that I'm actually feeling and what's my feelings versus what somebody else's feelings. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer to process some of those feelings for me, and it takes me a beat to really sort of sit alone quietly and sort of sit somewhere where either I can hear relaxing music or do something to distract me, or I need to be able to take my mind off of something. Go read something that's a fun read, go do like a comfort watch of a TV show that's a comfort watch for me, but I need to sort of take my mind and my emotions out of that situation so that I can kind of go back to regulating myself and figure out, well, what are my feelings, what are my emotions versus those emotions and those feelings that I picked up on from somebody. It can also be very helpful. It's a tool in the workplace. If I walk into a room and I can pick up on some tension, or I'm aware of something that's going on, or I feel there's like a thing that's not being said, I can kind of figure that out and sort of sniff it out and sort of talk to people and sort of, with simple diplomacy skills, try to assess what's going on. And I can actually use that skill to sort of help people if the situation calls for it and if that's appropriate to do. It doesn't work in every situation, but it's certainly a situation that sometimes works. But it's important to have enough emotional intelligence and self-awareness to sort of do a stop, pause, self-scan of your feelings, of my feelings. I have to regularly stop and scan my own feelings to sort of make sure I'm not getting lost down the rabbit hole of somebody else's feelings. In particular, if like a friend or a colleague is telling me about a workplace situation that they have that I find wildly frustrating, because there's all these leadership techniques that I know that can kind of get around these different situations, or there's different techniques that I would use in sort of communication skills to figure out how to like talk to somebody better, to get out of a misunderstanding, or how to work a way through a disagreement or an argument or something. It can get really, really frustrating for me to sort of hear their feelings and pick up on their frustration, their anger, when I'm also sitting there trying to problem solve and think about ways that I would be able to help in that situation. Sometimes I can't help myself but to try to help out, but that's not necessarily what's always needed. So if I'm starting to feel a little bit of that, I will sometimes tell my friend or my colleague or something, I'll find ways to sort of wrap the story up respectfully so that this person feels heard, but they're not feeling like I've cut them off. But also I need to start telling myself, okay, tune into the fact that, am I feeling my feelings, or am I feeling their feelings, or is there something I can do? A lot of times I need to sort of get out of that situation, or sort of go for a walk, or go drink a glass of water, or sort of do some sort of different thing to re-regulate myself again, to get out of that. Usually I have to leave that situation. I have to get away from that conversation. Sometimes I have to actually tell myself, that's not how I feel right now. That's not my feeling. I'm happy. I'm good. I'm not feeling that way right now. That is that person's feeling. Getting some sunlight, getting some daylight. These things make such a huge difference for us in general, but in particular, when we're starting to feel these things, having that change of scenery and getting some fresh air, going for a walk, changing your environment, taking a drink of water, just something. Again, anytime I have anxiety, an ice pack on the back of the neck always makes a huge difference, but it can work again in this situation, or at least it does for me. It also helps if I can go talk to somebody else and sort of share those mix of feelings to somebody else, so that I can kind of talk it through with that person, so that I can kind of clearly talk it out loud. And sort of once I get it out, that sort of helps kind of get those other feelings out of my body, so that it's no longer a feeling that I'm feeling or that I'm confused about. The other thing that really helps me too is I like to problem solve. So if the person that I'm talking to is comfortable with this and is okay with it, I ask for their permission first, but I say, can I give you some advice on that? Can we brainstorm on some problems on that? That way you need to move past that sort of negative brain dump, if it is negative, and work towards a solution-based conversation. Personally, what I find is if I can't stop that person's anger, frustration, negativity. It's one thing if it's sad, that's sort of, I hold space for the sadness and I help them work their way through, and that can be helpful for that person. But as if it's something angry or frustrated and more on that kind of end, I will get really frustrated, or I will lose my patience, or I'll lose my ability to sort of keep it together. So I have to be really careful there. So if I can move them to a place of solutions, or talking through ideas or solutions, talking out strategies can help me feel like I've solved this problem, or I've contributed to a solution of some kind, which will help me feel a little bit more completed about those feelings and move towards something. If the person kind of responds with more negativity, or just shuts down the solution-based ideas at every turn, then I really have to get out of that situation. I have to get out of that conversation, or I have to sort of change the topic or something, because that's sort of like a despair spiral at that point that is difficult for me to sort of manage with. And, it's kind of like the whole thing on an airplane. You got to adjust your air mask first before you can help somebody else, or your life vest, or whichever it is. And, the better friend you can be is to be somewhat useful in that situation. I'm Brett, the Audhd Boss. If you found any of this useful, or even if you can just relate, or you have questions or topics about ADHD or autism in the corporate workplace, please let me know in the comments. Let me know if there's a topic that you'd like for me to cover. Let me know if there's something that I can cover in terms of a new video for you, and I'd be happy to do that. Please like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow quite a bit. And thanks for watching. Please be sure to check out other videos while you're here on the channel.